Welcome to Fighting Stats, the ultimate channel for MMA fans who love statistics and betting breakdowns. I'm your host, Art C, and I'm here to get you ready for the upcoming UFC fights. In this series, I'll be watching tape and providing my real-time analysis on how I think the fights are going to go. I'll be watching for fighters' strengths, weaknesses, tendencies, and overall strategies, pairing that with Fighting Stats' exclusive UFC stats not available anywhere else to give you a prediction on how I think the fights are going to go and ultimately who's going to win. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Welcome to Fighting Stats. Welcome back to Fighting Stats. I'm your host, Art C, and today we are breaking down the UFC 299 fight between Curtis Razor Blaydes and Jailton Almeida. Surprisingly, this fight is on the prelims after Jailton Almeida beating Derek Lewis in the 5-round main event in Brazil. Now he's on the undercard, taking on Curtis Blaydes. I keep on going back and forth in this fight, and I'll tell you why in a bit, but let's break down the stats. We'll see what the numbers say, and then I'll give you my prediction on how I think the fight is going to go. We're going to start with Curtis Blaydes on the blue side. We're going to put Jailton Almeida on the red side here. So Curtis Blaydes is going to be 12-4 in the UFC. 50% of his wins are coming from TKO, and 42% of his wins are from decision. He does have a no contest in there now, so the numbers are a little bit off. 75% of his losses coming from KO. Whereas the Almeida side, he's 6-0 in the UFC. Some of those fights at light heavyweight, remember that. And so now he's at heavyweight. 33% of his wins by TKO, 50% of his wins by submission, and 17% that last fight wins by decision. It doesn't not have any losses in the UFC there. In terms of the tail of the tape, looks like Blaydes is going to just be about 1 inch taller and 1 inch reach advantage, both of them standing in orthodox. So let's go into the Curtis Blaydes offensive striking here. He's going to have a mixed breakdown here. So actually less than 50%, 47% of Blaydes' offensive striking or strikes landed are going to be at a distance. And 40% of them is going to be on the ground, where 13% is in the clinch. So very big discrepancy in terms of what we're normally seeing, around 80 to 90% distance striker. Curtis Blaydes definitely needs to go to the ground to get a lot of his strikes from the ground there. So in terms of target here, 82% of his head strikes towards the head, 11% towards the leg, and 7% towards the body. Striking accuracy, 41% head strike accuracy, 86% body strike accuracy, and 89% leg strike accuracy. In terms of his output by round, pretty low output, I would say. 34 strikes thrown in round number 1, 24 in round number 2, 31 in round number 3. For 15 strikes landed in round 1, 12 landed in round 2, and 18 landed in round 3 there. Rounds 4 and 5 do drop off there. And then knockdowns in his UFC career, he's only had 2, one in round 1 and in round 2 there. And then you can see his leg strikes go down, his head strikes go down as the rounds go on there. Again, we talked about the 2 knockdowns in the UFC. One was against Chris Daukaus there back in 2022. And then before that would be Alexei Oleinik in 2017. Otherwise, not a huge power puncher. 52% strike accuracy there. Has thrown 123 leg kicks. 110 of them have been successful. Normally not a big leg kicker. He did throw 4 against Pavlovich, 1 against Aspinall, 6 against Daukaus. So medium in terms of leg kick strikes there. Defensive striking, 81% of his strikes absorbed are from a distance. 14% of them are in the clinch, 5% on the ground. Whereas his target breakdown against, 87% of the strikes landed are to his head, 9% to the body, and only 4% to the legs. Defensive striking accuracy, pretty average, 35 strikes, 35% head strike defense, 70% body strike defense, and 84% leg strike defense. You do see the strikes absorbed by round. Pretty good strikes absorbed by round. 10 in round 1, on average 10 in round 1, 6 in round 2, and 5 in round 3. So pretty good defensive numbers as the fight goes on there. He has been knocked down 4 times, 3 of them coming in round number 1, 1 of them in round number 2. Knocked down by Pavlovich in his last fight there. Knocked down by Derek Lewis, Francis Ngannou, and then Mark Hunt there. So those are the 4 knockdowns. And again, hasn't eaten a ton of leg kicks either. Only seen 32 leg kicks in his UFC career. 27 of them have been successful. I think that's partially because Curtis Blaydes, really known as a wrestler, wants to get the fight down to the ground, so opponents tend to be a little bit cautious when throwing leg kicks. All right, so the Jailton Almeida side, let's go. Wow, look at these numbers. So remember we talked about 80% of strikes at a distance. Jailton Almeida is the opposite, where 93% of his strikes landed have been on the ground. I have not seen numbers like this. That is some crazy numbers. His distance striking is only 5%, so 5% of strikes landed have been at a distance, and then even in the clinch is only 2% there. So big strikes. You can see Jailton Almeida definitely favors the ground and looks to get the fight down to the ground, with 93% of his strikes coming from on the ground. In terms of his target breakdown, very much a head hunter. 93% of his shots going towards the head, 4% to the body, and not a huge leg kicker there. I want to say 2% target bread towards the leg. Striking accuracy, 67% head strike accuracy. That is some crazy numbers there. 80% towards the body, 33% leg kick accuracy. So a little bit flip. Normally we see those leg kicks in the high 80s to 90s. We see the head strikes below 50%, but head strike accuracy, 67%. And then strikes thrown by round. Now these numbers are going to be off because, again, we talked about 93% of those strikes are going to be on the ground, but he does throw 25 strikes in round 1, 24 strikes in round 2, 29 strikes in round 3. Strikes landed go from 16, 19, and 19. In terms of strikes landed, does not have a knockdown in the UFC. Overall, 64% strike accuracy there. So look at these distance strikes, man. He's been fighting since 2022. So he fought Derek Lewis, Rosenstrike, Shamil Abdurakhimov, Anton Turkalov, Parker Porter, and Danilo Marcus. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 UFC fights. He has thrown 19 distance strikes over 6 UFC fights. That's less than 3. That's 3 on average per fight. 3 distance strikes per fight. That is some crazy numbers. Leg kicks thrown, only thrown 6 leg kicks in the UFC. 6 leg kicks. Out of 6 fights, that's 1 leg kick per fight. And he's only landed 2 of them. 2 leg kicks he's only landed. So some crazy numbers. We know that he wants to go down to the ground. We know that most of his strikes are going to be out of the ground. When he's standing, he's not throwing any volume standing. And he's not throwing any leg kicks either. But then you look at these ground strike numbers. Ground strikes, he's thrown 202 grounds thrown. 142 of them have landed there. Some big strikes early in his career there. But yeah, these numbers are crazy. All right, so let's look at the defensive striking here. 77% of his strikes absorbed or shots landed have been from the ground. 18% of them at a distance, only 5% at a clinch. A target breakdown, 84% of the targets against has been towards the head, 14% towards the body, and 2% to the legs. Head strike defense, not great, at 50%, 50% towards the body, and 100% towards the legs. Strikes absorbed, look at these numbers. Strikes absorbed by round. On average, what is it here? 1.3 strikes landed against in round number 1. 0.5 strikes landed against in round number 2. Round 3 spikes all the way up to 5 strikes landed in round 3, and then round 4 and 5 we don't need to talk about there. So yeah, overall 46% significant strikes against. So he's only seen 43 strikes attempted against him. They've only landed 22 strikes against him. And most of them, honestly, 4 of them. He's only eaten 4 distance strikes in the UFC. 6 fights, 4 strikes at a distance have landed against Jailton Almeida. Obviously, most of his strikes are going to be from the ground there. You can see ground landed, 17 strikes there, and then only eaten 1 leg kick as well. So a lot of unknowns here, man. He hasn't shown any stand-up, and he really wants to get the fight down to the ground. So let's obviously move over to the grappling report. That's really where this fight is going to take place. We all know, basically from the numbers, that Jailton Almeida is not going to have any volume standing. He wants to get this fight down to the ground. So let's go to... Okay, we'll brush over Curtis Blaydes' offensive grappling. I don't think that Blaydes will attempt a takedown here. And that's weird to say because let's look at some of these numbers here. Curtis Blaydes offensively grappling. Offensively grappling, He's attempted a takedown in every single fight. He has 116 takedown attempts in the UFC. 62 of them have been successful. He has some crazy amount of control time. I don't think he needs to. Oh, he didn't attempt a takedown. Obviously, in the Aspinall, that fight was weird. Even in the Chris Daukaus fight, he didn't attempt a takedown. So early in his career, he's definitely takedown heavy. And then somewhat recently, everybody says fight IQ, and it is partially fight IQ. Some of it is just trying to wear on him. Maybe he just has confidence in his feet, but he shot one takedown against Sergey Pavlovich. It wasn't successful. 0 takedowns against Aspinall. That's fine. 0 takedowns against Chris Daukaus. That fight going into round 2. And then 6 takedown attempts against Jairzinho Rozenstruik. 3 takedowns. None of them had successful against Derek Lewis. And then Alexander Volkov. So a little bit of when you expect Blaydes to shoot and wrestle, he doesn't. And when you expect them to stand and trade, he doesn't. So that's why I think the fight IQ comes in. Let's go over to the defensive grappling, because these are the numbers that we're going to really care about. And these ones are weird too, because it's a circumstance of the UFC heavyweight division. It's so shallow. There are no legit heavyweights, only really when you get into the top 10. And of those top 10, maybe, not even half of them are actually elite grapplers. Curtis Blaydes and Jailton Almeida, probably one of the top 2, grapplers, wrestlers maybe, in the division, and here they go up against each other. And it's sort of evident in the takedown numbers against. So there, Curtis Blaydes, he's only seen 6 takedown attempts against. In his UFC career, he's allowed 4 of them. One was against Alexander Volkov in the 4th round, the most recent one. That was in 2020. And then before that, he gave up 3 takedowns to Cody East in 2016. So other than getting takedown by Volkov in round 4 and then Cody East in 2016, Curtis Blaydes hasn't even fought a legit grappler or anybody that really wants to get him down. I posted over on Twitter the actual takedown attempts against. The takedown defense from Curtis Blaydes, not the greatest. So somebody that trains takedowns and wrestling most of his career and probably every fight camp, his takedown defense probably non-existent in the fight tape that we saw. So that's worth keeping in mind. Again, Jailton Almeida is going to want to get this fight down to the ground. So let's go over to the Jailton Almeida offensive grappling here. He attempts 2.3 takedowns in round 1. Attempts 1.5 in round 2 and 3 in round 3. Successful in 1.7 in round 1. Takedown in round 2, and then 1 takedown in round 3. So very high level efficiency out of Jailton Almeida and his grappling. He's attempted 29 takedowns in his UFC career. 16 of them have been successful. And then look at these control times. For every he took down Derek Lewis, 276 seconds in round number 1, 259 seconds in round number 2, 230 seconds in round number 3. Almost every single round. Look at every single round, he's had at least 160 seconds of control time. So that's 2 to 3 minutes of every round that he's in. He's controlling his opponent. And those are big numbers. It's not like guys are getting up from under him. He has very good top control. He likes to hang out in half guard, controlling the fighter in half guard, and then he will transition and move towards mount. So I'll talk about that in a bit, but that's the numbers that really come out of the page is the offensive grappling. Defensive grappling, we can touch on it. He's only seen 2 takedown attempts, both of them against Derek Lewis. So obviously 100% takedown defense. Again, I'm not confident that Curtis Blaydes is going to shoot a takedown. I really don't think it. I think what Blaydes wants to do is keep the fight standing. And so how I see the fight going is twofold. It's going to be a tale of 2 tapes. So Curtis Blaydes, again, he's never fought a grappler that really wants to get him down to the ground. Jailton Almeida going to be the first one to really try to bring the fight down to the ground. And I say that because the numbers really speak for itself. Jailton Almeida wants to get the fight down to the ground. It doesn't look like he wants to stand at all. He's only thrown, what do we say, 6 ground distance strikes there. So he's going to want to get it down to the ground. I think Curtis Blaydes will probably want to keep the fight standing. I do think that Curtis Blaydes does have the better hands. We haven't seen the sample size big enough for Almeida, but we just know based on the strikes. A lot of front kicks, not a big leg kicker either. We haven't really seen much hands. So I think that there's a clear path to victory for Curtis Blaydes. Keep the fight standing, stay and strike with Jailton Almeida, pick him apart at range, all that stuff, and win by that way. Whereas Jailton Almeida, his game plan is going to be simple, and it's always the same thing every single time. He comes out with the front kick, and then he fakes the double leg or shoots in for the double leg. If he doesn't get the double leg, he'll push you up against the fence, work some cage wrestling, and use like some outside trips, inside trips, get you down on the ground against the fence. But Jailton Almeida hasn't fought a grappler as good as Curtis Blaydes. So what's really to give? How good is Jailton Almeida? Is he just beating up on these nobodies, getting these guys down? Is Curtis Blaydes that good? And just the numbers are a little bit off, right? So it's hard to be confident on either side, and it really comes down to Curtis Blaydes' takedown defense. And again, the fight tape shows that Curtis Blaydes' takedown defense is pretty bad. The numbers say that Curtis Blaydes' takedown defense is pretty bad. But I am hearing from his camp that the takedown defense is actually pretty good, and that they're looking at get-ups, they're looking at training takedown defense get-ups, all that stuff. So I don't know. Like it's one of those things where I think if Curtis Blaydes, same thing with the Derek Lewis fight, if Curtis Blaydes defends the first takedown attempt, he very well could. He's very big. I think he's like 262. He might cut down to 265 on fight day sort of thing. So Jailton Almeida used to fight at light heavyweight, so consider that. There's going to be at least maybe 30 pounds difference between these guys. So Jailton Almeida used to fighting these lighter heavyweight guys. Now fights a legit heavyweight with legit grappling background. Going to be very hard to get Curtis Blaydes down, but if anybody can do it, it's Jailton Almeida. He has some really good entries, some really good high-level grappling, and once he gets on top, very good top control. So that's what I mean. When it comes down to the takedown defense, if Blaydes stuffs the first takedown attempt, I don't think Jailton Almeida is going to give up, and now he spends round one, standing and trading. He's just going to shoot in for next time and shoot for another takedown, defend, get back up, shoot for another one, and defend and rinse and repeat. I don't think there's going to be a lot of striking exchanges here. I think that Blaydes is going to have to defend the takedown and defend the takedown most of the round, especially round number one. So if worst case scenario for Almeida, he shoots for a takedown, doesn't get it, he gets back up, shoots for a takedown, doesn't get it, or whatever, but gets back up. So a lot of number one is going to be grappling. I see it. Blaydes is going to have to defend the takedown, this and that. So for Blaydes striking, and so if he can keep the fight standing, again, it's his fight to win on the feet. I think he's a better striker, but he does have to contend with the takedown attempts, and he hasn't had to do that in the past. He's never fought a grappler where he knows that the takedown is coming. That means that Blaydes cannot sit down on any kind of long combos. He can't throw a ton of leg kicks because he's going to throw his leg out there and get caught. He can't sit down on really any punches and throw power punches. We saw it in the Derek Lewis fight. As soon as Jailton Almeida senses that Derek Lewis is going to throw a big overhand right, he level changes, gets the leg, gets you down sort of thing. So I can see it being a stalemate for a lot of the first round. Maybe Jailton Almeida doesn't shoot within the first minute, but he's going to be standing well outside in kicking range. He's not going to be inside the pocket and trading. It's either going to be all the way out for Almeida or all the way in. If Curtis Blaydes tried to close that distance and strike in there, he's going to overcommit, and he's going to let Jailton Almeida get to those hips and get him down to the ground. So on the ground there, if we look at Almeida versus Lewis, there was multiple times where Almeida attempted to take submissions. Basically, his submissions go from arm triangle, from full mount or half mount, to roll to give up your back to rear naked chokes, and that's a majority of his submissions are rear naked chokes or arm triangle there. I think Curtis Blaydes is probably good enough not to get submitted in those two submissions. I think he's trained enough to limit the amount of submissions. And then, I don't know how good his get-up game is. I could see Curtis Blaydes being flat on his back for a majority of this fight. I could see him trying to wall walk to the cage. But Almeida does a good job of sort of predicting what your next move is. You can see fighters posting to try to get up, try to wall walk, and Almeida's right away on that arm taking the post away. He's trying to butt scoot, and what he does is he picks up your butt, moves you back off the cage, moves you parallel to the cage so you don't have the ability to wall walk there. Jailton Almeida always tends to be one step ahead. Very hard to get up from under Jailton Almeida. So that's why I go back and forth on this fight here. So I think Curtis Blaydes has a clear path to victory on the feet, keeping it standing, popping jabs, all that stuff. I think Jailton Almeida has a clear path on the ground by top control. I don't know if he's going to get the submission. I was more confident about him getting a submission on Derek Lewis, but then he went 5 rounds with Derek Lewis not able to submit him. So now I think it's probably going to go to decision if Almeida gets on top. I think he's good enough and his cardio is fine. Remember, this is a 3-round fight. This is over in Miami, so it's probably going to be the bigger cage. It favors Blaydes in the bigger cage, but I think Almeida can still win enough or do enough control time for the 2 rounds that he can bank a decision. So I'm considering fight goes to decision. I'm considering Jailton Almeida to win by decision. I think if he gets enough top time like he does with Lewis, not able to submit Lewis, but he rides out top time with Blaydes. Blaydes, gives up 300 seconds of control time. I think it's going to be hard to give these rounds to Blaydes, but it comes at like, I could see a split decision where it's like 3 minutes of control time for Almeida, and then it's 2 minutes of Blaydes jabbing his face off, landing a couple of big shots there, landing some bigger shots in the clinch, and then rinse and repeat for round number 2. And then maybe Blaydes takes over in round 3. I sort of favor Blaydes' cardio into round 3. So I can see somewhat of a split decision there. But I think the fight goes to decision majority of the time because, again, on the feet there, Jailton Almeida is not going to stand in the pocket and really trade with Blaydes. He's going to be all out. He's going to be kicking at a distance. Blaydes not a huge kicker to return the kick, so it's going to be Blaydes that has to sort of close that distance, get on the inside, try to land these things. And again, once he does get on the inside, Jailton's going to be shooting for the hips, shooting for the takedown, things like that. So I don't know. I've been going back and forth. I know a lot of sharp people, a lot of sharp buddies are on the Curtis Blaydes side. I've been burned by Curtis Blaydes so many times that I'm so reluctant here. I thought he would sort of grapple Derek Lewis. I thought he would grapple Pavlovich, and he just doesn't. So it's hard to assume that you know what he's going to do. It might be one of those cases where Blaydes comes out and he shoots for a takedown right away because he thinks that his wrestling's better now. He's on top, and then Almeida throws up a triangle or something like that, and nobody saw it coming, sort of thing. So you never count Curtis Blaydes out. You never know really what he's going to do. Based on the game plan that I'm seeing, like if you're smart, that's what you're trying to do is keep the fight standing, pop him on the outside, sort of thing. So I'm not able to pick a side yet. I might get to it by the end of the week, but I do want to get this out just to get my thoughts out there. I will look at Almeida decision. I'll look at fight goes to decision. I may consider Curtis Blaydes to KO in the later rounds, maybe 2 and 3. Or I do think that if you are on the Curtis Blaydes side, I think that you can get probably a better live betting number after round 1. I think Almeida, if he is going to have some success, it's going to be grappling and it's going to be in the first round. I think there's going to be maybe a lot of get-ups. If Blaydes is going to have some success, he's going to get taken down, but then he'll pop back up. He'll get taken down and he'll pop back up. And that might really wear on the cardio of Almeida. And then Blaydes is super live for KO in rounds 2 and 3. Whereas if he does get the takedown, Almeida does get the takedown and Blaydes cannot get up, then it's just Almeida riding top control. And I think he has enough cardio to do that for 3 rounds there. So again, that's why I keep going back and forth. I'm not a passionate take on either side. I can see the case for both sides. I myself thought Almeida would be somewhat of a bigger favorite, and he was. But that was before the Lewis fight. The Lewis fight sort of exposed Almeida and his grappling deficiencies. And if you can't take and submit Lewis, what are you going to do against Derek Blaydes, one of the best grapplers in the division? I get it, and that's why we're seeing some money coming on Blaydes. I think he's taken over the favorite spot. So I do think that the bigger, sharper money is probably on the Blaydes side. But again, I don't have a side yet. I'll probably get there after thinking about it, talking to some people and stuff. But that's where I see the fight going. The numbers really speak for themselves in terms of what we're seeing. I don't see any deviation from the numbers or anything like that. I don't think anything will really surprise me other than Curtis Blaydes the one shooting for the takedown and engaging in the grappling, which maybe is possible. We haven't seen Jailton Almeida off of his back either. Who knows if he's a fish off his back, or maybe Curtis Blaydes is a fish. So a lot of unknowns. I wanted to be really confident on the side. I just can't get there. So keep an eye out. I will post some plays if I do get there. FightingStats.com, Patreon.com/FightingStats. We have actually added our Fighting Stats dashboard. So this dashboard here that I'm looking at, it's available on our website, FightingStats.com, under Fight Stats. You can somewhat customize all the matchups. You can figure out, you can pick who you want to see matched up against each other and see where the numbers are there. So take a look at that when you have a chance. You won't be disappointed if you like numbers and stats. Again, my name is Artsy. This is Fighting Stats. I hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks for watching. guys, well, that is it for today. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this type of content, make sure you smash the like button, hit the subscribe. You'll get notified anytime we put out new content. Listen to this. We just hit a massive parlay for $29,000 at UFC 297. That is one UFC after 296 where we hit a parlay for $82,000. That's back-to-back parlays. We've made $110,000. And how do we do it? We use our exclusive fighting stats, not available anywhere else. Our exclusive fighting stats gives us information, gives us a big edge over the sportsbooks, and tell us what's going to happen within the fights. We post all that information, our breakdowns, our best bets, over at patreon.com/fightingstats. Don't miss out. Make sure you subscribe today. Again, my name is Art C. This is Fighting Stats. Thanks for watching.